We are going to start our study session. I'm going to turn over Councilor Majuk to Councilor Allen.
All right, thank you. So he has 8A. It was a local law that was tabled last time, so it'll be ready for Monday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I have item 9, and I'll know by Monday if I have any deeds. All righty, Councilor Caldwell.
Thank you, Madam President, and blessings to everybody here. I have items 10 through 11, and I have Commissioner Julie LaFave here.
Good afternoon. Item 10 and 11 are related. This is to issue a bond and authorize capital improvement, $300,000 for our pools. With that, it won't cover all of it, but we'd like to cover as much as we can. We'd like to make some ADA upgrades to some of our pools. It's very long overdue, as well as continue the saltwater conversion.
Have you already selected the 9, or
What's that?
have you already selected the 9 pools, or?
Yes, we have saltwater conversion, Schiller Park, Onondaga, and Kirk Park. ADA upgrades, we have a variety of locations that don't have the access into it. Schiller Park had to close early last year because of a repair that's needed.
Okay, thanks.
Yes,
Any other questions? Thank you.
thank you.
Councilor Green.
Thank you, Madam President. We'll start with item 12. This is a grant from Bloomberg.
Good morning, councilors. Nicolas Diaz, Chief Innovation and Data Officer for the City of Syracuse. To provide a little bit of context, Syracuse was competitively selected along with Seattle to participate in this program by Bloomberg Philanthropies aimed at reforming how cities do procurement in order to have more efficient, fair, results-driven, and equitable procurement. So the Common Council already authorized part of this engagement, which was to receive expert support from an organization called the Government Performance Lab at Harvard Kennedy School, who specialize in this subject. So this is the other part of that program, which is to receive funding to support our ongoing procurement transformation efforts, which will include digitizing processes, supporting vendor engagement programs, and so on.
So how much of it goes to that company? Sorry. Sorry.
We're receiving $1 million.
Right. So I guess how much of it is already spoken for in terms of our planned use of it?
We have a preliminary budget. Roughly, it's around $500,000 for digital transformation and $500,000 for supporting different, more process-oriented programming, potentially hiring some interns, supporting vendor engagements, developing materials for communication purposes, and so on.
Okay. Other questions? This is accepting, accepting the funds, right?
So is that something different, the accepting and entering into an agreement? I had a little problem with trying to understand what it is. Is that, Joe?
Good afternoon, Joe Barry, First Assistant Corporation Counsel. So in the past, the city departments have run into situations where they, through a relationship like we've had over the years with Bloomberg, they've made grants available to us, and we have not had to do a formal application. We actually have 2 different forms in our ordinance directory, where one is just to accept, one is to apply for and enter into the agreement. I think we had a recent one on a couple of sessions ago from the state where they just made funds available to us. So this is similar in that the department has to accept entering into the contract through council approval, but they don't have to submit a formal application.
Okay, so then it's an agreement instead of accept the payment, so we just.
Well, we're accepting a grant agreement.
Okay.
They're giving us, because they're giving us the funds, so.
Okay.
I think it's correct on the short title.
It's, yeah, I just noticed, I just wanted the council to make sure the council vote on what they're agreeing to, because the legislation said enter into an agreement with Bloomberg, and I just want the short title to reflect what really is.
Yeah, well, there
Should it
were,
be accepted an agreement, or as long as they're voting on what they're supposed to be voting on, the legislation said, enter in a grant agreement, so.
it's kind of a technicality.
Okay, all
The
right,
important action is council's authorizing the mayor to sign the grant agreement,
okay,
but it's part of accepting the funds from Bloomberg.
I got you.
So it's related.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Thank you, Joe, and thank you,
Welcome.
Nico. Item 13.
Hi, Vicki Voss, Deputy Commissioner of Finance for CPC. This is the annual Onondaga County tax levy. The total amount is $45,463,507.92, if I can read it well. This is just what Onondaga County sends us for the tax bills, and we're going to be sending those out in a couple weeks, so we're just looking for your approval on the levy amount.
It is significantly higher than before, or is it the same, it kind of
It's a
stays-
little higher, but not much.
Same with the other two, right?
Yeah, for the sanitation, drainage, and,
Okay, so, no, sorry. I have a question. So item, I guess 15 specifically, so the units, it's based on the total amount and then it's divided by the units per municipality. Do you know how the units get calculated, how that gets determined?
I don't know, do you know? I don't know how the county calculates it. They calculate it every year, so I can look into that and get back to you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think, this is what it is. It's an agreement. We're going to vote on this and probably pass it. But I think over the longer term, particularly given Micron coming into the area, there's likely to be additional growth. And to the extent that we are calculating our sewer cost, if a unit is more like an individual house or a business, you may require a lot of sewer infrastructure to, have a neighborhood that's really spread out with only 4 houses, but it takes a lot of piping to get there versus the city, which is very dense and has a lot of houses together. And so I just want to make sure we're being kind of treated equitably and we have a better understanding going forward. So it's not necessarily for us voting on this item, but strategically as a city, I want to make sure we have an understanding how that works.
Sure, I'll look into that.
Okay, thanks.
And before she leaves, I want to ask her one more question. I'm going back through here and I'm seeing that it's resolved that the schedule of the rates to be, no, not that one, but it's authorized to adjust the final county tax rate of the city of Syracuse. So did our tax rate get adjusted higher or lower?
The tax rate is a little higher than it was last year, as is the water.
Okay. I don't know how they figure all this out, so I just guess I gotta dive into it a little bit more, okay?
I think maybe it'd be certainly help a lot of the new counselors at some point, we just have a meeting regarding the tax levy of the county and the, abstract, which is always a really interesting topic.
Yeah, I think it's that, and then the intermunicipal agreements, I think that's something we haven't looked at closely in a
As
couple
you
of years.
brought up, especially with the Micron. And I noticed like the one, I think it's gonna be on the abstract is the STEAM school, but they got it down to 0.
Zero.
So we're not, maybe at some point we should probably have a meeting on it.
I agree. Okay.
Well,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor Gather.
Thank you, Madam President. I have items 16 through 27. Starting off with item 16.
Man, 'cause I don't even know how they.
Good afternoon, councilors. Mary Robison, city engineer. Item 16 is an authorization with an agreement with Fisher Associates for the design phases for the Midland Ave milling and paving project from Ostrander to West Seneca Turnpike. This is a TIP project, total cost not to exceed $235,000 for the design phase, 80% federal reimbursement and 15% Marchicelli.
When is this supposed to take place after approval?
We're just initiating the project, so I'm thinking approximately 2025.
Any other questions? Thank you. Item number 17.
Items 17, 18, and 19 all go together. This is a new TAP project, which is part of the TIP for pedestrian, non-vehicular projects, pedestrian bike projects. So 17 through 19 is a new project for the Kirk Park pedestrian bridge replacement project. This is for the design phases, not to exceed $390,000. Sorry about that. So this is the existing Kirk Park Ped Bridge, which connects Kirk Park Drive to the Creek Walk. And this is only 80, this fund source is only 80% federal reimbursement. It's not Marchicelli eligible, because it's not a vehicular component to the project.
Is there a, oh, sorry.
It's not a what to the project?
It's not a vehicular project, it's a ped bike project.
And on that note, that Bridge New York funding that just came out, that wouldn't apply to this then, because it's pedestrian and not
Right, but we
vehicular,
are
right?
submitting a couple projects
Oh, good.
for the Bridge New York.
Related to the 81, or?
No, our own projects,
Okay.
our own bridge
I know
projects.
that the bridges are all gonna be potentially,
But that's all
altered.
DOT.
okay, so we don't have any.
Right, and this Bridge New York funding is all, for all municipally owned bridges, not state-owned, so it's strictly for the municipalities.
Got it, okay.
For this project, do you have a timeline?
Also 2025,
Say that again?
2025.
Okay.
You'll be gone.
Any other questions?
Next new TAP project is the Erie Boulevard West pedestrian and bike improvements, so that's items 20 through 22. Bond ordinance agreement with New York State DOT and the project authorization for the design phases not to exceed $670,000, 80% federally reimbursable. And this is for Erie Boulevard West between West Genesee and Franklin Street. It's currently a 4-lane roadway. The intent of the project is to take one of those 4 lanes and make it a multi-use path for bikes and pedestrians. And we'll also improve the sidewalks in that area as well.
Go ahead.
What, I'm just trying to visualize what it'll look like. Is there like another street that we would compare to in terms of having one of the lanes be?
I'm not sure if we're going to, we haven't started design yet, so we'll have renderings of what it's gonna look like, but it could be something similar to the connective corridor on downtown, which has the green bike lanes on both sides, or University Ave, which has it going up towards SU, where there's that multi-use path on the one side, the east side.
So the hope would be it would be protected by some physical
Right,
infrastructure?
yes.
And is this going to take away parking on the streets as well? Is this particular project here, does it have parking?
Once we get into design, I'll know more on that, but I believe the intent is to remove one of the vehicular lanes, not a parking lane.
Gotcha.
Is there parking on Erie there?
I don't know, that's what I was wondering, I don't know. Or
There
Boulevard West,
is,
I don't
kind
think
of
so.
as you get towards downtown, I've
Yeah.
seen. I don't
Towards
know if it's-
downtown there is.
Okay.
Yeah, like Cafe Kubal might have some parking right around there.
Immediately west of Franklin.
Yeah, it does.
There's parking.
But, I mean, at a high level, I think, we're talking, West Genesee Street obviously is not very pedestrian friendly, and so having a parallel street that connects the west side to downtown is, I think, excellent, so I'm hugely
There'll be
supportive of it.
public input, opportunity for public input, so this is just to kick off the project
Great.
and get the funding in place, and then we'll do the RFP for the designer, so there's a lot more information to come. And we will also be following up with a milling and paving project on, because this project will only address the pedestrian bicycle part, and then we're going to also mill and pave the rest of the road.
Perfect. Any other
But
questions?
that's a future project that I'll be coming to you with.
Mary, this might not be in your purview, but I'm getting, somebody from the administration, but I noticed there has been proposals for, like the big red building there, that's a proposal to be renovated and all that. So all this is sort of meshed in together with the administration. I mean, we're doing all the sidewalks, we're gonna be doing bike lanes and all that. But it'd be nice if also that building would be, oh, I see Eric back there. You know what the building I'm talking about, the big red building.
Yeah, where they used to
Call
sell.
it Big Red, too.
Sell warehouse
You know,
stuff out
so
of
we
there.
sort of put together the construction, hopefully they get their state grant.
Sure.
And we're able to renovate that, and then we got a whole new bike lane and everything else.
Well, I think so from a larger economic development perspective, so when we know there's projects coming in and whether they have permitting plans already submitted, or, that's one of the benefits of our pre-development meetings is pre-development, when we've got the infrastructure team and staff in the room, we do plan accordingly and better understand if, looking at curb cuts and looking at the overall impacts of these projects. The one you're referring to, plans are still conceptual at this point, but that's something NBD will make sure is incorporated as part of the Erie Boulevard project. I very much think as part of the design stage, as they're moving into that, we'll have more information on that particular site on Erie. Now with DOT and then in the 81 project, a lot of these larger state level investments, they also are taking a lot of the economic development projects into consideration as they're designing and looking at state funded projects too.
As long as they're all coordinated, so it's, all works together.
Yeah, that is the
Economic
ultimate.
development of downtown, because obviously there's been talk about turning that one area into a park next to, on the other side of that one street there. We were down there.
You're talking still the same site you're talking about. Yeah. So I think there's incredible coordination happening. And I think as new projects are proposed in the city, that's also where, it's important for us to keep all of that in mind.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Mary.
Sure.
Just the last thing I'll chirp in on is, as West Street gets redesigned too, that'll have an impact on that neighborhood, and particularly right now where it's somewhat unlikely, I mean, not unlikely, but less people would want to walk or bike from the Park Ave neighborhood to downtown. When West Street goes away, all of a sudden it will become a more walkable place.
And when we, as you are well aware, when, many people talk about the division of neighborhoods, what happened with Route 81 and the 15th Ward there was 160 houses along West Street. Where West Street is, there was 160 houses. So they destroyed that whole neighborhood too and separated it from downtown, so.
But Pat, I paid the light bill so I could see your face.
What's that?
Like that what they put up on the thing.
The bridge.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, councilors.
Any other questions? Number 23, please.
23, I'd come previously to you for money to appropriate, purchase a new GPS unit. Unfortunately, prices have increased and I need an additional $1,500. So you had authorized 25.5, so I'm asking for it to transfer from my operating budget $1,500 and increase the authorization to $27,000. So it'll be a transfer between my operating budget to this account with your approval.
Any questions? Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 24.
Good afternoon, Counselor. Corey Dunham, Chief Operating Officer. So this is an agreement with CIDA and the city. For the city, CIDA owns the garage at Center Armory, and the city is responsible for the maintenance and management. So this is just a renewal of the agreement between CIDA and the city.
This is a very creative use of CIDA's resources. Very good. I like that.
Thank you.
How is the maintenance going? I get a little worried when we talk about the shared partnership with maintenance and then what happened at AXA and how they're being.
Yeah, it's a subterranean garage, which is always going to have some challenges. So, we are, as we're doing our capital planning process, taking the structural reports that CNS provides us on an annual basis to plan what improvements need to be made to the Center Armory garage in the next year. So engineering, I know, is actively working on that, and so we should have more information on that as we finalize the CIP.
So, and also Auditor Maroon did that great report, and have any of those issues been addressed with regard to this? Okay.
Yes.
Much like OSIDA's cleaning the raw steel site, CIDA taking care of the maintenance at the Center Armory is very.
Well, CIDA owns it. We do. We maintain it. The city maintains it. CIDA owns it.
But CIDA's going to reimburse the city, I imagine, right? For maintenance?
No,
See, I was curious
think
about
so.
that.
dollar.
Huh?
They own the garage. They They pay us, that we pay them $1. I mean, all the maintenance and
Right.
costs and all that is all coming from the city.
Okay, who's paying for that? Are we being reimbursed from site?
Not from CIDA, no.
Well, maybe we should be, shouldn't we?
Right, I agree.
Anybody from CIDA? I'm on the garage part of it. I can have a conversation with CIDA about this.
I think, so, Council, I think we can go back and have a conversation around that. I mean, this agreement, since the year in which the Center Armory project was developed in Armory Square, this agreement has been extended over a period of time, but this has been the agreement between the city, given the city's capacity and just through garage ownership and garage maintenance that happens elsewhere in the city. This is a unique, and this is the only garage that CIDA does own across the city.
But I mean, obviously, Center Armory, I was around when Center Armory was done. Center Armory, obviously, it was a great economic benefit to the downtown area. CIDA should be reimbursing the city for any maintenance.
Okay.
When I originally read this, that's what I thought we were agreeing to.
No, I mean, I would imagine then CIDA might want the revenue that we are getting from the garage also, so I
Well, we
mean.
can work it out, for sure. I mean, certainly, you know, I mean, but I think it being a CIDA, and we're taking care of the maintenance, we should be, especially just like Councilor Schultz brought up about the acts and the continuing problems with these garages. But here's a perfect opportunity for CIDA to
Yeah,
bear
we have
some of the load.
we have a couple different plans underway for Center Armory as well that I can brief the council on.
As many people know, we get this book Tuesday, and unless you're on the committee, you don't get to see what actually is being proposed. So.
I mean, the letters
I'm
are
glad
submitted
that's
far in
my
advance, but I
point.
understand the book is only printed on Monday or Tuesday.
Well, we get the letters.
Right.
If you're on that committee.
Right.
You know, so we have a very little time to look at this, but now I'm glad.
Right,
you
but
brought
it's-
this up by President
Right,
Hudson.
I'm just saying that's not by design of the administration. We submit the letters well in advance.
Well, you've had these plans before, though. I mean, this is not something you've done this before.
We have done it before. It's come before the council before and been approved by the council before. It's an annual ask.
Well, now we're asking a different question.
I know, which I did not anticipate.
Well,
So yeah, I'm happy to have the conversation.
okay.
Can
Maybe
I
we should-
jump
maybe we
in
should
real
hold
quick?
this.
Okay.
Corey, could you do you have a roundabout estimate, or can you get how much we've actually paid in upkeep for this garage?
Yes, I
Okay.
can get
would
you
like
those
to
figures.
send that around.
Yes, I mean, so it's a relatively recent change that finance made was to code expenses by garage. So historically, we don't have that information, but finance, I think as of fall 2021, started coding expenses per garage so that we were able to track expenses by
We'll be able to
garage.
track from 21
The
to
capital
now,
expenses.
But we won't be able to track anything.
Historically,
further
yeah, I
back.
mean, I think it was generally a fund and everybody took out of that fund when garage repairs needed to be made, which was not the best way to track that information.
I mean, I guess to summarize, Counselor Hogan, if the garage makes money, I want us to have it, and if it loses money, I want CIDA to have
Well,
it.
Right.
Right now.
Agreed.
Exactly, but right now, we know nothing.
We don't know.
Right, you know, and as far as CIDA goes, obviously, they charge fees to developers, and they have a different source of revenue than the city does and are per, besieged
Yeah, I'm
taxpayers.
happy to pursue this conversation further. This is not a particularly time-sensitive, have to get it done
Okay, call
issue,
committee
so,
meeting, I'm here.
Absolutely.
thank you.
Item number 25.
25, 26.
Good afternoon, Council. Neil Burke, DPW. Item 25 is an amendment to ordinance number 412, 2022. The only thing changing here is the vendor's name. They were purchased or combined with a different company, so they have a different name that we need to reflect on the contract.
Okay.
Item 26 is a one-year extension of our existing contract with JMT Inc. To assist in the operation of the Traffic Management Center. And these costs are 80% reimbursable through an agreement with New York State.
Any questions? Thank you.
Number 27 is a waiver of competitive bid for Transcore Inc., which is related to the Traffic Management Center. It is a contract for proprietary software services for the city's traffic control system.
So they have a whole totally different software system set up for the traffic control?
Right, it's industry standard, it's based around one system, and basically we have a system that's about 16, 17 years old. So I compare it to Windows, it's like having Windows 98 when we're on Windows 11 now. So more functionality, same vendor.
And do we still have staff in the traffic control center, or, so how many people are still there?
So we use JMT to staff it throughout the day. We also have city staff who assist and who interface with our JMT partners.
Okay, because it used to be our city staff that was in traffic control, correct?
We had staff there who were not necessarily trained
It was
in,
city staff.
but it was city staff.
So will the people using this new software be trained by this same contract?
Yes, and it does come with training, and that's open to city staff as well. So myself and other members of DPW staff will be there for the training.
And how long are we, so once you guys get trained on that, then we wouldn't need JMT anymore, correct?
That's not necessarily true. There are benefits that come with hiring a traffic engineering firm that the city of Syracuse cannot provide at this time. So we don't have traffic engineers on staff.
At this time, right? And that could change down the road, right?
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Counselor Hogan.
Thank you, President Hudson. I have items 28 and 29. 28, we had a committee meeting on it. There's some counselors here who weren't at the committee. I'll get back up there, Commissioner. You might have some questions. But I appreciate their presentation, and I'm pretty satisfied with what we accomplished at that meeting. Any questions for the counselors? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Commissioner. 29 is, I guess, Jake will handle this. Who's going to handle this? Oh, there's Jake.
Smile, Jake.
Good afternoon, Council. Jake Dishaw, Director of Code Enforcement. This is a companion piece to our recently locally introduced legislation for the cannabis law. It essentially is going to allow us to put points against legal retail operating businesses, food stores, corner stores, gas stations that are selling illegal cannabis products. So we can apply points to legally established retail locations, and that will just be another tool to not only, we talked about how this, basically the cannabis law applies to places that are just operating as dispensaries. They're not even existing legal retail places, but some of you even complained about some of the existing retail food stores that are already or suspected to be doing this. So this gives us a tool to address those with their certificate of use, and if they build up enough points or disorderly conduct, we can close them.
How many points do they need to score?
So this per violation, the maximum is 4 points per violation that we can apply. But within a 12 or 18 month period, there's different thresholds where we can move to close them.
Okay. So they have to have a certain amount of points before you can actually close them.
That's correct. That's if they're a legal established location that has a valid certificate of use, and we catch them doing this. We never had an avenue forward to apply points for that. And I guess to broaden it, it could be for other illegal sales of items potentially too. So,
Good, I hope
but
so.
This is specifically a companion piece, so we can address the ones that are dispensaries that are opening in non-retail allowed locations that aren't zoned correctly, not proper building code. But we're talking about legal places that are open today, like a gas station, for example, or a food store, where we get a complaint that they're selling other products that are not lawful. We can address it in this manner.
I commend that.
Get it straight.
President Hudson and well, President Hudson and Councilor Caldwell brought that up at one of our previous meetings, so I commend you for bringing this. I'm just wondering, Joe, how's this work? Is this part of the local law, or is this is separate? This is general ordinance? Okay.
Well, would you two mind, or Patrick, mind coming up and talking about the legality around here as far as the accumulation of points and everything, or it would work if they got over the points or whatever on the legal aspect?
Well, I can speak to that. So we can apply points for a number of things. A lot of the disorderly conduct points that we charge as a city against businesses, a lot of the times, unfortunately, stem from police and crime, shootings, assaults, stabbings, stuff like that. But we can apply points for other violations. This is creating an avenue for us to be able to apply points to a business where we believe they're operating in disorderly conduct fashion, and apply those points. With that, there is a legal process to bring them before a hearing and give them the due process. But we can, along the way in that path, we can pull their certificate of use, meaning we can close that business. Historically, I believe the city's only done it a couple of times, but it's something I think all of you have seen. We've been really aggressive against illegal commercial establishments. So we're no longer going to tolerate the things that come along with these sorts of places. And this is just an extra tool for us to use in conjunction with everything else that already exists across city government, whether it's the law department, specific things to code enforcement or fire prevention, or the police departments. It's cross-departmental efforts.
Jake, I think the council kind of like want to know the accumulation of points.
Yeah, I mean, so this isn't new. The certificate of use program exists currently, and it does. It's required every 2 years. And if we have problems, we can apply points to your certificate of use. So it's required for food stores, bars, restaurants, corner stores, gas stations, fast food places.
I think the refresher is like, is it 8 points where you can go to shut someone down, or what's the threshold?
Yeah, so I believe it's, and I don't have it in front of me, I think it's 8 within 12 months, or 18 months there's a higher threshold. But I can get that information to you and send you the ordinance. Like I said, we've only had to do it twice for businesses. A lot of these problems, I think, can be addressed in other avenues. Like, this isn't the only way to get them on things. It's just another thing that we can apply pressure to keep them in legal conformance and operation. So I want to be clear on that. Like, if a place is open that shouldn't be there because they haven't got any permits and they're not zoned to be there, they don't have a building permit to be there, like, this doesn't apply to them. So I want to be very clear on that. And that this isn't a new process. It's just applying a certain section of penal code, which then equates to us being able to issue points. So it's no different than, there's an assault at a bar and we determine it was from disorderly conduct at the location, so we apply the points, and hopefully they come into line.
Do certain things carry a higher threshold, like a homicide? Does that carry a higher number of points or threshold?
The maximum point value that we assign is 4 points per incident. There are lower thresholds at 3, but at this time,
killed outside of a store, you could only give them 4 points.
Yes, at this time.
So, Joe, my question is there accumulation, I know in this particular situation here we're talking about 4, is there accumulation of points, like 12 points? Because part of the ordinance that's being amended, it mentions something about a total of 12 points before something happened. Is there a total accumulation of points before the business can be put into an area, a status of license being taken? Is there a total, or is it just the 4?
No, and I believe that's what I was just speaking to.
Can you please speak on the legal part of it?
The director administers the program. I'm not
No,
I'm not familiar with how.
I just want you to speak on the legislation part of it.
Well, first of all, as far as administering it, we have a team of 4 attorneys over there supporting Jake, so that's why I'm not personally involved or familiar with the process. So that being said, the format of the ordinance, we're simply adding the cannabis, the new violation, to the list that was previously in the business certificate general ordinance, so that the director could use, when we have violations of the new cannabis law.
And you're adding that to it, but is there accumulation of 12 points that's necessary?
It's 12.
Yeah, that's what I want to.
It's an existing ordinance, it's 12 or more.
Okay,
What this will do is give us more opportunities to add points to a
So
package.
it would be if you get 12 points, they can make that decision. Basically, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, and there's other, it's not just this that applies to that. So that's what it could be, again, a lot of it is driven from an actual, possible arrest or an incident that involves the police department, but it's not limited to that. And this is just adding to that list.
And these are all for established places as opposed to local law, which is just for.
Yeah, I mean, if we have a place that's just operating illegally, like we're not gonna, they don't have a certificate of use, they can't even apply to get one, where it's not a tool to use in that case. So, happy to engage offline or separate in a different meeting or a different setting, but this is just another tool to strengthen what we recently came to you for, strictly around cannabis. But the program already exists for everything else that happens.
I have one last question, Jake. Is this through a particular period of time that you accumulate these points?
Yeah, and that's what I don't have. I should know it, but there's a certain number within 12 months and a certain number within 18 months. And
It's 12 within 12 months or 18 points within 24 months.
Okay. Thank you for that.
And then after 18 months,
and-
it resets, right? The points expire?
Well, yeah, like something that might be outside that time frame would no longer be applicable. But again, I want to be clear, like we have not had more than I think 2 establishments reach that point. Now, keeping in mind, like we have other tools like nuisance abatement. There's other things that it's not just this that we're using to make sure that commercial establishments are maintaining good order.
I think the points is great, but I still worry about the whole testing aspect. Because to make code enforcement officers go in and be the cannabis experts, they're selling the little leaf bag, but is it really cannabis in there? And you're assigning points to their certificate, but then there's spike and then everything else.
So I have a question that's has nothing to do with points. So if we go back to the local law under Councilor Majoke, and then we look at this accompanying piece. So for the establishments that are operating illegally on the corner dispensaries, we can go in there and shut them down because they're operating illegally, but we do not seize the product. Am I correct in saying that?
We can seek a court order to close them.
Okay.
And then if we get that order from a judge, probably at state Supreme Court, maybe city court, I don't want to speak for law, yes, then we can move to close them. To my understanding, we will not be seizing any product at this time.
Because we don't know for sure that it is actual.
No,
cannabis.
because we're not enforcing criminal, law. We're not the police department. This is a civil action against an illegal business.
The operation in the facility is what we're enforcing, and so if they're illegally operating, we're stopping the operation, but we're not seizing them.
Okay, so then in turn, for the ones that are legally operating, if you walk in and you find those products, how do you know that those are actual cannabis and apply the points to them then if you can't test it? And I'm kind of piggybacking off what Councilor Schultz just said. You can walk in the door and a bag of edibles may have a marijuana leaf on them, but you don't know for sure that it has THC in it or not. So where's the threshold to apply those points? It's the same thing, isn't it? It's just one has a certificate of use, one doesn't.
I'm not an attorney. I don't want to speak for our attorneys, but it's different. I don't have to prove a criminal that they're breaking a law. This is a civil action against them for doing something that we believe is illegal. I think the limits on what we have to prove and substantiate are much, much lower than me arresting you for something. So, I mean, we'll work with law with that, but it's no secret. I mean, half of you on the council have told me you go into places and see this stuff. Like, You know, so.
Legally, how do we enforce that? Because the shop owner might say, but I'm not selling cannabis and you just gave me 4 points. Now I'm gonna get shut down next month. I mean, I'm with you, Jake. I'm your side. I think the work that your team and SPD does is phenomenal, but I wanna make sure that you're safe and that we can actually enforce what we're voting on.
So this is a question we'll have to talk with law about the content. But the bottom line is that we get calls to go check on these
Without-
places.
I know.
Because it is assumed that this is in there, so we follow up.
Right.
So this is a tool we're trying to establish. We'll continue to talk with law about, this is why in police stops, there is no testing available right now. So if anything, it'll get us into a facility to investigate what's going on there, whether it's cannabis or some other illegal situation going on in there. So at least it's a tool for us to at least get in there to see what's going on.
And Deputy Mayor, I think I wasn't criticizing you.
Oh, no, I didn't take it that way.
Again, I'm completely with you. I think it's disastrous for a neighborhood to have one of these places open up and wreak havoc on corners that, you know, there's cars all over the place, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But what I'm concerned about is the state legalizes cannabis without any guidance.
Any guidance.
And what happens is, we end up in a situation where we're going in and shutting them down. They take their products, they pick them up, and they just move them to another place, right? So.
Yeah, Jake has been chasing one of those establishments from the east side to the north side.
I think
and-
that's what the neighbors see, the
Yeah.
actual citizens of this city see, that the place gets shut down and pops up
Yeah,
someplace else.
it's enough for Jake and his team, working with SPD, to chase the newly established places that pop up and move all over the city once we put pressure on them. Now we're dealing with people that already have a CFU, who start, you know, brokering this product in their building. And it's not every place, it's probably the same players that we're dealing with all the time. I want to ask the question, right, and I'm right, I'm not being critical, but I'm just curious to know. I know that we put legislation or ordinance in place for bath salts at some point, right? You remember that, do you not? The bath salts?
I remember that timeframe. I don't
Vaguely, yeah. Because I'm curious to why we can't wrap some of that together, because we were, you remember.
Well, marijuana's legal though. Cannabis is legal in the eyes of the state. Unfortunately, it's not legal to sell.
And I get that, but I'm going back to the bath salt ordinance for the fact of it is the same argument was made. They don't know what's in it or whatever. It's the same as the spike. Well, bath salts aren't made for consumption. So it's a different situation because a bath salt is not made for consumption as opposed to cannabis, which has always been for consumption, is just legal now. And there are no guidelines to help us manage it. And I get all of that, but I'm just trying to figure out, because we're making all these spotty ordinances, and I do get what you're doing with the cannabis. But again, I'm still gonna talk about my concern. My concern is the spike. And the bath salts and the spike and all of that, to me, we could wrap that together some kind of a way. Because they're both products that they don't know what they're made of, and I don't know. I mean, there's no difference in the question that she asked about something it looks like spike or looks like some other substance abuse, that the code inspectors don't have tools to test it at the time either. So it is a catch-22. To me, it at least gets us into an environment, into a facility that allows us to look at all of that. We know all that. Well, I'm just stating
I would
it.
think that we let the administration logistically work this out.
Thank you.
Pass this legislation. If it's challenged in court at some point, we'll fight it down the lane. But I think we're just talking about logistical things as far as testing and all that. So I'm ready to move this, because I think we should give them as much administration. The city needs something like this to control these issues, and nothing's been more prevalent than not only the cannabis pop-ups, but like you, President Hudson points out, and Councilor Caldwell and Councilor Schultz pointed out, some of these stores that are just selling and dispensing things that they shouldn't be. So I'm set unless there's any other questions.
I'm just concerned that we have this great thing in place and your staff are gonna get there and hands are tied again, you know, like wasting your time. And do you have confidence that this is gonna be enforceable?
I do have confidence, and again, we're not arresting people, like, we're not the police department.
We're assigning points. Yeah.
Right, so, Again, this is another, without this, we cannot even address it to even give due process to let a court weigh in. So, you know, to what Counselor Hogan stated, this is just another tool to give us the ability to hold people accountable without violating their rights, without taking away their rights to due process. But I believe what we have to substantiate and prove with something like this is much lower than trying to arrest you or charge you with a crime. And again, our attorneys, we will get with them and look to make sure we have this ironed out. But this is no different than what we've already been doing at these places. But this is going to add more options to us and enforce the ones that are blatantly operating like this.
And this precedent's already been set, because you've done it with other places, not concerning cannabis or spike or anything else, with restaurants or bars or things like that you've assessed points to.
That's correct.
You know, so,
We
I mean,
can't
this
test
is
it, and we can't seize it. He can see an electrical wire that's hanging, that's a fire hazard, and cite them for that, but he can't test or seize the cannabis, suspected cannabis.
It's a logistic concern that I'm sure they're gonna work out if it's challenged.
So you
we'll
can't do
work
this
it out.
until that's worked out, right? You can't start really assigning points until we can test, right?
No, it's no different than what I'm doing right now when I say you're unlawful.
Okay.
I'm not testing product right now.
Okay.
I have zero ability to do it. These places, I don't mean to laugh, but like, it's blatant. Like they have menus where they're really, really descriptive of like the chemical makeup of the things that they're selling, because that's what these consumers want.
Right.
I mean,
So that's good. That's
you
proof.
can Google
You can take a
search most
picture
of these
it.
places' social media accounts, and it's just out there. It's just they're not hiding it.
Right.
I'm really not concerned about it. We will work with the law department on this and make sure you know we're covering our back from liability. But part of this process in applying points and potentially closing a place does include a hearing with us.
We've been to neighborhood meetings, our constituents continually complain about these issues, and I think it's incumbent upon us to give them as the tools to.
And just to wrap up, I think as the state does come out with official licenses and we have actual legal license establishments here, I think some of the enforcement from the state level to put pressure, you know, on the illegal operators will come in. And we're seeing a lot of these places already leave city limits, which, you know, I don't want to just push it off on our neighbors outside the city, but my focus is here.
We'll wait for guidance from the Office of Cannabis Mismanagement.
Don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath.
Thank you.
In the meantime, Jake will take care of his
Yes,
business.
and thank you, Jake, again. I can't thank you enough.
He said mismanagement. Counselor Allen.
Thank you. I have items 30, 31, and 32. Hi.
Councilors, Michael Collins, Commissioner of Neighborhood and Business Development. I'm here to address items 30 and 31. So for 30, we had, as the administration does every year, had on our list of funding priorities for our state and federal representatives, funding for the Resurgent Neighborhood Initiative, specific to the infill housing component of that, which we talked about in our committee meeting earlier today. We're very fortunate that this was an item that was chosen for funding. So HUD has reached out and said, we'd like to give you money, and so we would like your permission to take that money and build houses with it.
Okay, and we did discuss this in the committee meeting at 10, but if anyone has any questions? No? Okay.
Item 31, this council previously approved $500,000 to be used for our neighborhood community centers to do capital improvements to the building. So very specifically, we said we are not funding related to programming. We are funding related to the infrastructure that allows you to provide the good programming. So we've had 6 agencies respond to that RFP for a total of $300,000. There's an appendix within there that states, in broad overview, generally what they're going to do with that funding. We've got another $200,000 that would that's still there. We're going to put this money out, learn from it, and then re-RFP. Might choose to adjust the RFP based on feedback a little bit, but without adjusting the intent. The intent would be the same.
So you're saying for the 200,000 people can still apply.
We not at the moment, but we will make that available in the future. Yes.
Are these the only 6 that applied for the?
These are, we funded everybody that applied. Yes, these are the 6 that applied.
And just a question, is this up to date? Like, how recent did they say this is what they're gonna do?
It was within the last 2 months. Sure.
Is there a time frame for the projects to be completed?
There will be, we're saying 2025, due to the fact that we've got until 2026 to have all of the ARPA funding out. We do need to, we're going to have track of it though, because if it looks like some of this is not going to be spent, we need to reallocate by 2024. So we'll stay in front of it.
And is there something in place for you guys to, like, inspect the work to make sure it actually got done?
Well, so in a few different ways. One is much of this work will need to be permitted. So we're able to, frankly, even review the plans before they've got a permit. That's the beauty of NBD having all of these divisions in together. So that'll be the case for a lot of it. But besides that, yes, we'll be doing site checks.
Okay.
Do you have an idea when that second round may go in effect?
Not yet. We want to be able to get these contracts out the door, get the projects underway, and at that point, it'll be a really good time for us to evaluate if we want to proceed exactly as we did before, or if there's something that we've learned that would cause us to do an adjustment.
Mike, I have two questions.
Yeah.
So if something changed in this and organization need to use the money for something else, they could?
We would consider that. Yeah. I mean, if somebody came back to us, I think you and I are probably thinking about the same organization that's had a few different things that they could have applied for. Those all existed at the time that this application was put together. But we can take a look, and if they want to reevaluate, we'd be happy to work with them.
And the other question is, what qualifies a person to apply for this?
So neighborhood-based community center needs to be just that, right? They need to be neighborhood-based. They need to have their own physical location. They need to be doing human service type programming within the model of the settlement house model, community center model. So if they're doing programming that is serving families, youth, seniors, that's great. If they are doing other work that is outside of that, or if they have, say, offices, but they do not have program space, then they're not going to be allowed to do that.
And so for the second round, obviously you would encourage other organizations to apply. So it wouldn't be like these 6 will automatically get in and new applicants.
Well, so to your point, Counselor, we try to get this information out as we did in this time around, to be able to make sure that everybody that might qualify is able to. We did hear from entities that were not even close to qualifying. So we know word really got around. But yeah, absolutely. What we're really looking to do is make sure that across the city, the community centers are in good shape to be able to host the programming, because the money's often there for the programming. And as someone who used to do that, I can tell you there's never enough money for the programming, but there's really, really never enough money for the space that the program exists within.
One question. I know there's a lot of different small community centers in this Syracuse area, and a lot of them don't have the capacity to be able to apply for the grants. So is there anything that we do to kind of try to help them, or is there any agency outside of us that would help them gear up to be able to get the grants, or could they get a fiscal sponsor to do that for them?
So for this particular grant, we held both an in-person and a virtual technical assistance session, which again, we put the word out pretty far and wide to make sure that we were able to internally be there to assist anybody that would be able to have some issues around applying. So we would be able to support within that. Fiscal sponsors are technically possible. I will tell you that if you're a community center that is not able to manage the money yourself, we would have overall concerns around the capacity to be able to do this. And considering the fact that this is treasury money that we are stewards of and will be held accountable for. We don't want to end up in a situation where we're coming back to you and saying we have to pay back out of our own pocket because something didn't go as planned.
Okay.
Good?
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, 32?
Michelle Spansky, Neighborhood and Business Development. Item 32 is to accept 4 qualified contractors to perform interior emergency repairs as part of the emergency repair program pilot that was previously approved by the council for ARPA. So these would be for things like sewer backups, no heat, no water, things of that nature.
Can you remind us again about the landlord participation in this or the homeowner, I should say?
So
are they gonna receive these fines to pay?
So these, in order to be for a property to have repairs done to it, it would need to be an occupied rental property. It would need to have open code violations that have been open past the comply by date. Additionally, we're prioritizing instances in which the landlord has not been responsive to fines from the BAA or from other legal action, cases where we've been to the properties multiple times that we're using a lot of staff resources. In those situations, we'd look to use this program. The costs would be charged to the tax bills if they were, they would be sent a bill. If they don't pay the bill, it would go onto the taxes the following year.
Okay, good. And then
And
maybe.
we can do that.
Yes, because
add
we
to the
are
tax-
performing a service to correct the code violation.
Okay, great.
So then when they don't pay their taxes in 8 quarters, the city seizes the property and makes it even better.
Yep, so I think in this particular instance, it's an argument for kind of protecting life safety of the residents that are there and preservation of housing stock, so.
Good.
So on this, I see is the contractors will be approved on a per project basis. So who's going to make the decision of which contractors get assigned to?
So the biggest thing that we're kind of trying to prioritize with this program, keeping in mind that there are emergency violations, so efficiency and ability for contractors to get out there is going to be a huge priority for us. So we will, when we're able to kind of get multiple quotes within the pool, we will, but ultimately we care the most about just being able to get the work done well and efficiently. In a situation in which we had a repair that required somebody outside of this list, because these are all emergency situations, if it's under the $10,000 threshold, we have the ability to find an outside contractor even beyond what is on this list. In a situation that if we were to, the cost of the repairs would exceed $10,000, we would work through the process with council to kind of get that done.
And so these look, just reading some of the names, they're a little bit familiar, but some of them are smaller companies. So financially, do they have the capacity to have the funds to do the work? And then I'm assuming they're waiting on a reimbursement from the city, which I know takes a while. And for a small contracting business, that can be like crucial for them paying their staff.
Certainly.
So how is that going to play out?
Yeah, so similarly to what we've started to do with programs like the lead program, we'll allow contractors to bill for the cost of materials immediately upon purchasing them, so that we can get that processed right away. We still have to be invoiced and kind of turn that around within 30 days. There's certainly, it's just a challenge that comes with city payments in general, so.
Yeah.
We also want to encourage our small businesses to work with SETCO, capital, so that's an option as well.
Okay, good.
Any other questions?
And the whole adequately address code violations, that's in the ordinance somewhere where you have X amount of days to fix an emergency situation.
Yep, so it's based on the comply by date that's set by the Division of Code Enforcement. So for a lot of these violations, it would be emergencies. It can be 24 to 48 hours. Sometimes there's situations where it's kind of the culmination of all the violations. So if you have like a leak or some electrical hazards, you might have 21 days. But if we're seeing things be dragged out beyond that period of time, or if we're coming back within 18 months to fix the same violations because of kind of like Band-Aid fixes, that's when we'd be looking to use this tool. And again, kind of after you have failed to respond to other mechanisms that we have to get to compliance.
I can't remember all the language from when we discussed this before, but does this include like relocation funds for, say, the tenants if there's an issue and the contractors have to come in? do we have funds to move the tenants for a day or two?
Right, so yeah, we already have the funding to do that as needed, so.
Okay, gotcha.
So the idea would be that we could kind of keep people in place longer term as opposed to having to, because every time that we do have to kind of permanently relocate someone, that also costs money.
Right.
So, to try to be able to kind of keep people in place longer term and more stably housed.
Okay. All right, I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hogan.
Thank you. I ask forbearance of the council to have on the supplemental agenda, it's a resolution to honor Syracuse University's men's soccer team's big victory the other night. Yeah, so we can all co-sponsor it. Hopefully we'll get some of the players here, but they're on vacation, some of them are, so.
Much needed break.
After they had to like march through the semifinals and the semifinals, so.
It's great.
How's that? All righty, Councilor Allen for Councilor Majok.
All right, so this is a resolution to the state. Obviously, with the conversations that we had earlier, this is just to make sure that the state knows that we need the financial support here on the local level to be able to enforce these cannabis laws. Absolutely, me too.
We're all signing that.
Right, they gave us a job to do with no money.
Right.
We'll see them.
All righty, and with that, oh, please.
Joe Barry, First Assistant Corporation Counsel. Just to put closure on the cannabis issue, I think, because there's a little confusion there. Obviously, the cannabis policy of the state has changed dramatically over the last couple of years, and as a city, we are responding to that. So I'd like to propose is, as your attorneys, we prefer to give our advice in executive session, because we don't want to reveal our legal strategies and advice to the agencies about enforcement. So I was going to offer, we can do an executive session on Monday to hear more detail about the legalities of enforcing both the local law, new local law, and the existing business certificate law, which we're adding to.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
That's good.
All righty, now, with that, anybody else? No. With that, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor? All righty, see you Monday.
We took all that.
Katie.